Welcome to the second installment of my Web3 storytelling masterclass, where I help NFT and crypto projects improve their storytelling abilities to build cult-like followings and make more money. I am Greg Larson, and I'm on a mission to become the best storyteller in Web3. So we have a lot to talk about today. If you joined me yesterday in this space in the first installment, you heard me talk a lot about play to earn gaming. You heard me talk about GameFi a lot and how a lot of Ponzi schemes tend to make a lot of quick money and then completely die away. Today, I want to actually talk about a different form of storytelling in the form of developing a brand voice. And I'm going to use Radioshack and Goblin Towns as the examples of two projects that really, in different ways, nailed the brand voice and what lessons and exact takeaways we can take from those projects and where a lot of other projects really fuck it up. And so let's dig in. So if you don't know, Radioshack, the 100-plus-year-old company, was recently purchased by a investing firm called REV, which is short for Retail E-commerce Ventures. Famously, one of the investors in this venture capitalist fund is a guy by the name of Tai Lopez. Tai Lopez is known for his days as being this like scammy marketing guy who, if you watched any sort of video on YouTube for the longest time, for like 5 to 10 years, it felt like, if you watch the YouTube video, Tai Lopez was in the advertisement before the video in his garage with a couple of Lambos talking about how to read more books. The whole thing, his whole shtick was how to read more books. And it all boiled down to just read the summaries of books instead of reading actual books. That's what this guy does. Does he make any money at it? Did he make any money in all this marketing stuff? I don't know, dude. Is he one of those guys who just like rents a jet and rents a Lambo? I don't know. But all I know is that he's one of the faces of this venture capitalist firm called REV. And this firm, they specialize in buying distressed properties, particularly retail properties. So in 2020, they bought Pier 1 Imports, they bought Dress Barn, Stein Mart, and Radioshack. Now, Radioshack filed for bankruptcy in 2015 and 2017. So it makes me curious, like, what exactly did REV and Tai Lopez buy when they bought Radioshack? I realize now that they were mostly buying the name brand. They're buying brand recognition. They're buying trust. They were buying a company that had been around for more than 100 years. And they eventually shifted it into this Web3 company, where now they have a DEX at Radioshack.org, and they have a coin, their utility coin, Radio, which has just been tanking completely. But the crazy thing is that their DEX actually has a significant amount of volume, right? The last couple of days, it's been averaging about $150,000 in total volume, which when you think about it, this company shouldn't even exist. Like it went bankrupt twice. There still are technically about 400 stores, but they operate independent of what this venture capitalist firm does with this Web3 DEX. So that those 400 stores that still exist in the world, I don't know what the hell they're doing. They're selling HDMI cables or something. That's not even part of the revenue that these guys get. So how is Radioshack, how does it have any volume? How does it have any sort of name recognition anymore? The reason is because their Twitter account is the elite shit poster in this space, and we could all take a lesson from these guys. This is the Twitter that on June 28th tweeted, "Just took an upper decker in Applebee's, ask me anything." On June 29th, they tweeted, "If you find a squirter, marry her." On July 1st, they tweeted, "Due to inflation, 6 inches is now 9 inches." And it's just like these levels of shit posts constantly coming through, the kind of thing that you look at, you can't even believe that it's real. Like this is happening from a well-known company. It's so unbelievable as to be engaging. And that's one of the biggest, I think, takeaways from this from their Twitter account is like the idea of surprise and the idea of not doing what everybody else is doing. Like what's so shocking to me about this space in Web3 is that there are no adults in this space. Like the largest and most popular blockchain was created by a guy who doesn't exist. The second largest and most popular blockchain was created by a fucking 20-year-old. There are no HR departments in these companies. We're a bunch of degenerates just coming together. And yet we all still pull in this old Web 2 corporate mentality that we're going to have some objective brand voice. As individuals shitposting, yes, maybe we'll have this like ridiculous shit that we say, but half of us are hiding behind PFPs. I don't, because I don't believe in that shit. But once we get to a point where we actually have to stand behind what we say and we're not anonymous, and maybe we are like the voice of a actual, whether it's some like DeFi platform, whether it's some game, play to earn game, whatever it is, all of a sudden we get scared, and we're scared to have anything other than it's like an objective corporate voice on social media, in particular on Twitter. I mean, Instagram doesn't matter because nobody in Web3 is doing like, there's no crypto and Web3 Instagram going on. But here's the thing, like a little bit of background about this Radioshack. Here's why it works so well. Like, first of all, there are two levels of storytelling when it comes to Web3 projects. There's the brand story, which includes like what we see in public, the social media account, even the floor price, the roadmap, the website, Discord, lore, narrative. All of those are what I would call the brand story. That's one level. That's the surface level story. And then there's the team story. That to me is what happens behind the scenes. Like who's on the team, what's the company backing it, all that kind of stuff that you might call the origin story. Now, what Radioshack is doing really well is the brand story, all that public facing stuff. What Goblin Towns is doing really well is the team story. Or rather, well, I think Goblin Town's actually kind of fucked up on the team story, but we'll get into that in a minute. So here's what I'm talking about. Like, go back to 2021. Go back to September. What was Radioshack tweeting? They had about 170,000 followers at that time, fall 2021. Bull market, going crazy. A bunch of people absolutely aping into Web3. Radioshack is tweeting shit like, here's a little headphone hack, mind blown, and then the headphone emoji. And then it was a video of somebody plugging in their headphones in a specific way that made the sound better or something. It was like, it was kind of quirky and playful, the stuff that they were posting, but there's nothing ballsy about it. It's exactly what you'd expect some like boring ass old company to be posting about. And keep in mind, this at that time in Q3, Q4 of 2021, it had already been owned by Ty Lopez and this venture capitalist firm. So they had control of the account at that point. And yet they're still continuing to do the same, like the same lame CEO, the same corporate posting that every other fucking boring ass company on Twitter does, dude. And nobody gives a shit, dude. I think a couple of bots like it and probably some like moms on Twitter do it, but nobody gives a shit. And like, here's a perfect example of how Radioshack shifted in the last 6 to 10 months. On August 16th of 2021, they tweeted at Wendy's. They said, "Hey Wendy's, how many retweets would it take for free spicy nugs for everyone here on Twitter?" I got 7 likes and 2 responses. Nobody gives, it's like this totally neutered, emasculated, totally just, I don't know what it is. It's like too scared to take any risks kind of voice that so many people go with in the space. They say, "Hey, we're the quirky people. Would you like to give us some spicy nuggets?" Like, nobody gives a shit, dude. That was at Wendy's, right? July 5th, 2022. All of a sudden, Radioshack has completely transformed into this like shit posting masterclass. They tweet at Wendy's again. This time it just says at Wendy's, WYD LOL at fucking 10:35 p.m. That's the kind of shit. It's so simple. This just like fire that shit off, 10,000 likes. And I don't think, look, engagement numbers get way too much credence in this space. Nobody gives a fuck. Like 10,000 likes. It's like getting applause at a presidential debate. It doesn't fucking give me a vote. Give me some money, dude. But that's the thing, is that they've doubled the number of followers. Okay, great. But that's also led to this higher volume in their decks. And don't get me wrong, their decks volume is all over the fucking place. Daily volume has gone between $8 million and $15,000 over the course. I don't know what to make. I don't know who's using Radioshack decks, but like at least there's something happening. I mean, today on CoinGecko, they're ranked the number 120 of dex volumes. I don't know what to tell you on that shit. And so how is Radioshack actually doing this? Who's behind it? So their CMO is this guy named Abel Super. And I mean, I have a few interesting quotes from him, right? He says, if you look at any corporate social media accounts, all of them are very boring. It's all about putting the information in front of people that this brand still exists, Radioshack, and this brand, Radioshack, is way cooler than it used to be. It seems like it's working out. And dude, 100%. And it's because they actually follow a formula. If you look at their account, it might look like at first blush like they're just posting all this crazy shit, but they're following a formula. First of all, they have a persona behind the accounts, right? Everything, I love the shit posting behind the account. If you find a squirter, marry her. It's all under the guise that it is run, that the Radioshack Twitter account is run by an intern that's super horny. That's it. It's like a rogue intern that is acting out of accordance with the CEO and everything else that they have, all of the checks and balances. This rogue intern is on the account, just posting all this like thirst traps kind of stuff. That's the first thing. They have a defined persona. The second thing, they're tagging other projects and actually talking shit to them. So like, rather than actually going after people really aggressively, they'll just like talk shit to them in a sort of, I mean, tweet ridiculous shit at big brands. For example, here's one tweet from the Radioshack account. It says, "Hi, at McDonald's, can I order a cream pie?" I mean, you think that kind of shit, do you really think that's the kind of thing that you're going to be able to workshop and get past HR? There are no fucking HR departments in Web3, dude. Use that to your advantage. Once this shit goes into normie land, we're not going to be able to pull this shit off anymore. Use it to your advantage now and talk shit. Take your shots at big accounts. But like, the thing is, there's another one. It says, "Hello at Kit Kat. Can you rebrand yourself to Kit Pussy?" And then here's another one. This is the best example. IDC, what anyone says. Lizzo, fine as fuck. What's up, girl? And then Lizzo responded a few days later and said, "I'll give you my number if you stream about damn time," her song, "in all your stores." Now, maybe Lizzo doesn't know that Radioshack barely exists as stores anymore, but the point stands that they take their ridiculous shots at these companies without, I guess you could say that asking McDonald's for a cream pie is disrespectful, but it's never disrespectful in terms of like talking shit at the person, like fuck you kind of stuff. It's all clearly so ridiculous, but that can't be anything other than playful. So pick a persona, take your shots at ridiculous like moonshot accounts and see what the hell happens. Another thing that this Radioshack account does well is that they lean into the thing that people make fun of them for the most. So like, what's the number one thing that you would make fun of when you see Radioshack somehow has a name for themselves in Web3? What do you make fun of them for? The fact that they're obsolete, the fact that they don't sell anything except for maybe a couple of batteries or something. That's the best way that you can make fun of them. So what do? They lean into it. So Radioshack just being for batteries, for example, when people say that to them, they say, "Hell yeah," and your mom's vibrator loves us for it. That's the kind of shit that they pull off. Like, for example, on June 21st, they said, well, let me step back here for a second. This YouTuber called Coffee Break, I think. I don't know. He is all about like creating content. I don't know who this guy is, but he created a video showing like why Ty Lopez, one of the guys who bought the Radioshack brand, is a scam artist, which he probably is, but like who gives a shit? So this guy created this video. So what does the Radioshack account do? They shoot a shot at this guy. They say, after a few days of not posting a lot, the Radioshack account on June 21st says, sorry, not sorry for the absence. Had to take the weekend off to bang Coffee Break's mom. Then it was like, boom. All of a sudden, that like set the tone for that day. Now you can, again, is that talking shit to a specific account? Yes, but it was a shot commensurate to the initial shot that this other account took. Just this playful. Does anybody think that the fucking Radioshack, whoever's behind the Radioshack account, actually had sex with this YouTuber's mom? No, dude, you'd have to be a fucking idiot to actually think that's true. But what they're doing is they're playfully talking shit. Nobody ever believes that this stuff is real. They're just playfully talking shit. That's what makes it so engaging. And it's just the most ridiculous stuff they can imagine. So that turned into, then it was a whole day of the Radioshack account posting stuff about batteries for this Coffee Break YouTuber's mom's vibrator. I mean, but that leads me to this other thing. So their formula for they actually have a formula for each day, it seems, give or take. So they'll have a good morning tweet with some kind of ridiculous sexual twist, like that one, banging somebody's mom. And then shortly thereafter, maybe an hour or two later, they'll have another tweet that sets the theme for the day. So the day after they took that shot at that YouTuber, they said on June 22nd, they said, due to high demand, we've just released our limited edition Radioshack AA vibrator batteries. And then the rest of the day was just all shit posting about vibrator batteries until people started responding with videos of their own of putting batteries in different vibrators and shit. They pick a theme for the day and they stick with it and they hammer it for a while. Maybe the theme for the day will be cream pies, this kind of thing. But that only works, some dumbass out there is going to be like, oh, maybe my theme for the day for my Twitter account should be that I talk about blowjobs all day. No, that only works for this account because the persona behind it is a sex-crazed intern. Do you understand? That's why this shit works. If you have a clearly defined brand persona, then this shit can be actually pretty easy because within the realm of sex-crazed intern, there's a pretty limited list of things that you can talk about. And that limitation actually makes it easier to come up with ideas, which leads me to my next point. Goblin Towns. So if you don't know goblintowns.wtf, it is this free mint project that minted sometime late Q1, I think. Maybe it was in April, sometime around there. Free mint, 10,000 NFTs, middle of the bear market. Ethereum was below $1,000. Everybody was like, fuck crypto, this is all a scam, all this stuff. No NFTs were minting, none of that kind of shit. Goblin Towns drops. All of a sudden, it's like this perfect personification of the shitty market. Everyone says that the art is crap. The art isn't really crap. It's like good art that's intentionally done to look bad. And it's like Garbage Pail Kids in contrast to Cabbage Patch Kids, if you remember the 80s and 90s. I digress. Goblin Towns became the most popular darling of the bear market at that time, and the floor price went crazy. People were buying it up. It was the only project that was doing numbers at that time. And the Goblins, they created this like really, I don't know, they did an amazing job with the brand story. They had an amazing voice. They had a unique voice and ethos. Like everything was all about like piss and shit and all these creatures with bugs, and like all the imagery on their website was all this like decrepit food, hamburgers. And then on their Twitter account, whereas Radioshack posts about like all sorts of sexual deviance. On the Goblin Town's Twitter account, they tweet with this specific font where it's almost indecipherable. You can look at it on their Twitter. But they literally created their own language that was like goblin speak. And that distinct language and that distinct voice, other people started imitating it, and other people would start writing a bunch of other projects. These unimaginative forks would start doing the same thing with the same font and just have some other goblin-y project. But what worked for them was that they created like such an immersive, funny world. They had their own language. They even did a Twitter Spaces. They did a Twitter Spaces where, hold the fort, I have fucking stats here, dude. I'm such a professional. I have notes and shit, but I have to actually find where the stats were. Yeah, they did a Twitter Spaces, and they actually added 50,000 followers after that Spaces. And what did they get on the Spaces? And did they, dude, this is brilliant. So they get on this space, and rather than saying, you know what, we're so grateful that everybody had a great time on the Mint, here's some stat, but none of that shit. They got on this space and they started talking in goblin speak and were chanting crazy shit like monkey burgers and rat degens, and it was super cringeworthy, but it was totally in line with their actual brand story and their voice, so it worked. So what did they do? They added 50,000 followers. Their floor price went up to 5.5 Ethereum at its highest. But so here's the mistake, I think. Their floor price goes to 5.5. It's June 14th and they doxed themselves. And all of a sudden, it's revealed that this is a team, Truth Labs, that's behind some other reputable projects. So you'd think that a doxed team that we find out is actually behind some reputable projects. I mean, look at Azuki. Azuki was doing crazy volume. They had a astronomical floor price, roadmap, everything. They doxed their team. Turns out that one of their project leaders had been a part of a couple of rug projects. Floor price fucking tanks. Makes sense. That story matches. But people were confused by the Goblin Town story because they do a free mint. There's all this hype. They're like a perfect embodiment of the bear market. And then all of a sudden they dox themselves. And it turns out that they're actually like really reputable guys. And then the floor price absolutely tanks. They go from a 5.5 floor price to about a 2.5 Ethereum floor price in the week following their doxing. People were confused over like, this team is behind the NFT market is so unpredictable that you can dox yourself and still be reputable. And people, no. That's not why the floor price went down. And that's not why the floor price has been down significantly since then. The reason it went down is because the story was out of alignment. Imagine if you went to the Radioshack account. There's no intern that's super horny behind the account. It's the fucking CM. It's the CMO. He chose consciously to create that persona. Imagine if Radioshack came out and said, "Hi, I'm the guy behind Radioshack," and it's just some fucking guy. Nobody cares, dude. I shouldn't say that. People do care, but it's out of line. Goblin Town's created such an immersive, funny world that has its own language, and it's all these people pissing on each other. And then you find out that the team is doxed and it's just a bunch of guys wearing fucking t-shirts. Like, it takes you out of the story. It's like you're watching a movie and halfway through the movie, the director comes out and says, "Thanks for watching the movie. I am the one who created this." I'm like, dude, no, like I want to believe this thing. I want to believe that it's an actual goblin behind the Twitter account. Do I literally believe that? No, but I want to maintain that illusion. And those guys having such a specific brand voice coming out with such a specific brand story, I should say, which includes the voice, which includes all the social media images, which includes the Discord and the website and everything. They come out and all of a sudden the team story who's behind the scenes is out of alignment with the brand story. And that makes everything fucked up. What's the lesson here? I think it's a good thing to be doxxed. But stay in the background. Like I know that Ty Lopez is behind the Radioshack thing, but it's not like pressed to the forefront in any of their Twitter stuff or anything like that. It's just, it's in the background. So I think it's important to be doxxed, but just fucking stay in the background, dude. Back to the Radioshack thing. They post things that you would talk about. Here's how the CMO views it. He wants to make Twitter content that people would talk about with their friends and say, dude, did you see that Radioshack tweet? I've done that. I was on a job interview like 30 minutes ago. And I said that shit to this dude. I was like, did you see the cream pie tweets from did you see the cream pie tweets from Radioshack? I don't know. I mean, that probably took me out of the running, but your boy still shoots his shots. And what makes that interesting for Radioshack is like, here's this disconnect and this surprise from this old school brand that sells batteries talking about fucking cream pies and squirting. It works because of the surprise. So for your own brand voice, what things do people say privately but not in public? And can you say that on your platform? Give yourself an open space to maybe do some crazy shit. There's no HR, dude. We don't have to act from these old paradigms. There are no adults in this place. One thing that Radioshack does is that they are never offensive to individual people. Like the Lizzo thing. They reach out to Lizzo, but they say like, you're fine as fuck. I mean, if she gets offended by that, that's on her. And they never go political either. Because they don't want people fighting about other shit. They don't want anybody fighting because of their tweets, which I think is great. Pick a specific persona. Here are a couple of tweets, and then I'm going to get out of here because I think that I've said everything I have to say about this. But the CMO of Radioshack, this guy who's been at the helm for this new shift in their brand voice, he says about his tweets, he says, all of our tweets have to be something people will be surprised about. The more surprised people are, the more engagement it's going to get. As long as the tweet is good and doesn't offend anybody directly, we don't want to turn anybody against each other because of something we've said. Okay, that's not the quote that I thought I was saying, because that's a boring quote. Here's a much better quote that I'm going to leave off, and this is going to be like super dramatic and is going to end this space in a really like cool way. He says, on social media, if you're a brand, you're not going to achieve something unless you're going to take risks and do something that no other brand has ever done in the past. And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that tweeting about squirting and cream pies and tweeting about goblins who pee on each other is definitely something that no other brands have ever done before. What can you do that nobody's ever done before?